Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell leak.
Factions is dead.
Well, hello and welcome to a merry, happy Holly Christmas Triangle Squared special.
So many women on the show.
We're very progressive here.
Yes.
Chris, I am joined by you, as always, one Mr. Chris Figueroa, and I'm your host, Brett Beck, like I said. So, if this is your first time listening to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast, first and foremost, welcome. We hope you enjoy the show. We, of course, talk about the gaming industry through the perspective of being primarily PlayStation fans. But one thing we always say is that we are fans of each system, and we will equally talk about the positive and negative we see of each system, be it PC, Switch, Xbox, or even the old classics like the PS2, PS3, Vita.
Facts.
You know, our beloveds. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, we hope you stick around and enjoy the show. We've got some stuff going on today. We're going to be talking about Chris trying to beat his head over Grand Theft Auto 4 and partially succeeding, at least so far. We've got some news about The Last of Us factions and where it lies, potentially 6 feet deep. We got some PS5 Pro rumors and some other stuff that is involving some of the Elder Scrolls 6 and Skyrim stuff. But as we always start these shows off, we will be checking in on what each of us have been playing this week. So hopefully either open each other's eyes to some games that we might like or give you our input on something you may have been either blissfully unaware of or that you've been curious about but wanted to hear some thoughts on it. So, Chris, I'm going to start off with you. You have a little bit shorter of a list than me this week.
Yeah.
So, of course, I've already spoiled your GTA 4. Would you like to
Yes.
regale the listeners with our escapades through Liberty City?
Yeah. So, on my own, I've now finished the story. So I kind of worked through that as thanks. I've worked through that as relatively quickly because there's the trophy Liberty City Minute, which you have to do it under 30 hours. I cleared it in 21, I think. So not a bad runtime. The game is great. I was getting real frustrated at the end, though. That game got real hard real fast.
Just one of those classic difficulty spikes right at the end?
Yeah, it's one of those things where the cover system sucks. It sucks is strong because it's passable for the time. You know,
well, it's dated, but it's in context, it's even worse because you've played such better games since then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because like stuff is flying from all corners in some of these maps. Like people are up on different levels of you, and sometimes you can hit them in cover. Sometimes you just shoot at a wall in the middle of cover, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, I had been talking to Blake through it, and I said to him, I'm like, I've been playing GTA 4 off and on for about 12 hours today, and I finished 5 missions.
Yeah.
That was all I did. I wasn't searching for pigeons, none of that. Just trying to get through the story. It took me all day, but now it's done. So it's just a matter of 100%ing the game and then doing the online trophies, which is where our GTA 4 experiences intersect or reach the starting line.
For all the races we did.
Yeah,
look, I haven't played GTA 4 since 360 when it first came out. And oh man. I'm going to be honest. I remember having played it. I remember why I fell out of it. I think that game is incredibly clunky when it comes to real combat, like you're talking about. But what I thought was really interesting is I want to talk about the positives of the game, because I remember when it first came out, the game is dense with detail.
Oh yeah.
At a time when that was unusual for games. So like, of course it came out post Oblivion, but that's like one of the only other contemporary games in the console space that had that kind of depth and detail. And so with that in mind, I remember being impressed, and I remember thinking that it was equally fun because I was like, you know, pretty young at that point, maybe 13, 14. I thought it was equally fun that you could do all these new things like get drunk and then drunk drive and see how it impaired your vision and all that. But I always felt frustrated anytime the game actually tried moving me into any kind of, this sounds bad. I don't want to say real gameplay, but I want to say core gameplay necessary to move the story forward. That's what I'll say. So gameplay that's required in order to continue the story, because up until 4, I have actually beaten Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I beat Liberty City Stories, and I played most of Vice City Stories on PSP. So I really traditionally liked the stories, and I found myself having a really hard time trying to stick through the story because I was constantly getting frustrated. And playing it with you, the little bit that I did just brought all that back. But I think I realized what it really was. I always felt like maybe I was just growing out of Grand Theft Auto, but I've long said that my problem with their games is I don't particularly like their brand of third-person shooting. I'm not even going to call it bad, but what I think for me happened is on PS2, third-person shooting was not nearly as ubiquitous as it became on PS3. And I think a handful of really great third-person shooter games came out right before Grand Theft Auto 4 did. And I think it kind of redetermined the way I approached third-person shooters, and I felt like that game fell short of that. And I think that that's really where the disconnect happened. Grand Theft Auto 4 is both surprisingly, it holds up surprisingly well. The little bit of storytelling I had, the writing is still pretty solid for the bits of cutscenes that I saw, and of course what I remember from previously beating it. I thought the game looked honestly great.
Oh yeah,
we talked about it. We talk about it like PS3 was one of the. I feel like PS3 was the last generation where one of the early games and one of the final games looked so drastically different that you're like, holy shit. And to that end, Grand Theft Auto 5 looks way better than Grand Theft Auto 4, but Grand Theft Auto 4 still holds up.
Grand Theft Auto 4 looks great. It's
character models is always the thing that catches you on those. The world itself honestly looks really great still. The cars are a little but most of the time in motion, you don't notice it.
I think that's kind of the thing with Grand Theft Auto 4, where it's like, it's not Horizon Forbidden West, which for whatever I feel about that game, gameplay-wise, is probably the most beautiful game in existence right now. But it's not that, but it's still totally serviceable. I think for me, the PS3, maybe this is a hot take, but I think the PS3 is the last playable 3D console. Because
I know some people are like mad about that, but I agree with you generally speaking.
I have a PS2 and I have Grand Theft Auto 3 for PS2, and it is not possible to look at that game.
I think away from looks, I think general feel.
They
I think
feel
those games
terrible.
Feel pretty rough. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Here's my caveat. I think 3D games with fixed cameras surprisingly work really well on PS2.
Definitely.
Like, I think God of War 2 holds up incredibly well as a PS2 game. Fixed camera. Devil May Cry 3, fixed camera, looks great, plays great.
Yeah, I think it's more of a trying to do too much with too little. I mean, at the time that was okay, but now looking in hindsight, that's why I look at you and I say the PS3 is the most playable now. In the PS5 generation, I don't feel like I lost very much other than FOMO of Avatar by playing Grand Theft Auto 4. And I guess I missed a lot of Destiny shit that I do not care about.
There you go, Velvet. Our weekly Destiny talk real quick. So there you go.
Every episode.
Continue.
I don't feel like I lost all that much, right? You know, It was just like, I'm having a lot of fun. And I haven't turned my PS5 or my Xbox on since I started playing GTA 4.
It's funny you say that because the same feeling you had with GTA 4 is exactly when I was revisiting Infamous 2. I was like, bro, this is great.
Yeah.
And I know that nostalgia fuels some of that, but nostalgia doesn't tend to blind me to visual or gameplay feel. And I got to say, like, just to even throw that in, like, Infamous 2, I'll give it credit. So it's 3 years later than Grand Theft Auto 4. But Infamous 2 felt incredible still. And it looks honestly incredible still. Like it's a great looking. Infamous 1 is actually kind of rough looking in the same areas that Grand Theft Auto is. It's rough character models, rough animations. Actually, the character animations are even worse in Infamous than they are in Grand Theft Auto, but they're both pretty bad. But interestingly, Going to Infamous right after GTA 4, what I was talking about the other day, do you not see what I was talking about? Like world style, the way they approach displaying their open world is really similar.
Well, that was one of the things I commented on when I turned it on today, is I looked at it and I was like, this looks like GTA.
I never realized it until I was playing it again and I was like, wow, this is kind of weird.
Yeah. I mentioned last week that I want next year to be a lot more platinums I'm challenged to go for. So something like GTA 4. I think Dragon Age Origins and 2 are on my list next. But I genuinely believe that I will, by the end of next year, I will have played more PS3 than PS5. That's like a goal for me.
That's not a bad goal. There's a lot of great games on PS3. Plenty of ones I didn't even get around to. So let's talk about your last one real quick. I noticed that you started up Lollipop Chainsaw, which is getting the remaster treatment here pretty soon.
Yeah, well,
interestingly enough, it was going to be a remake, but fans basically demanded it be a remaster because they were worried that they would change too much if they went remake. I don't know if you saw that, but that was pretty interesting.
I didn't see that, but I'm not surprised. That game is very... I say this with all the love and respect for James Gunn, but that feels like it feels like, and very much is, the James Gunn era he got fired for. You know? And I think the game is a lot of fun, but that I haven't played a ton of it, but that was a white whale game, and the homie Blake Pope sent it to me. So Lollipop Chainsaw is on my shelf. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. I will get around to, I played it, but I never beat it. I checked it out whenever I worked at GameStop because they would allow you to check games out for 2-3 days. And so I played a bit of it and I thought it was fun, but there was a lot of games at the time. And so I just never made my way back around to buying it. So I just have never beat it. But Shadows of the Damned is a great game and I'm looking forward to that being remade so I can come back around to that.
That'll be one I play this year, I think.
Oh, dude, it's like Dead Space meets Dante's Inferno meets like Mexican soap opera, like a telenovela. It's fucking awesome.
I have a lot of stuff I want to try. Like I always go back to Remember Me, but I've never actually finished it. And that game seems really
game's
cool. Remember Me's there. Alice Madness Returns. I'm looking forward to playing.
Oh yeah.
Did you
Killer
play?
Game.
I know this isn't retro hour, but holy fuck, it is like that sunk in where I said retro hour and I was accurately describing the PS3. But have you ever played 3D Game Heroes?
No, but I do know what it is.
Yeah, that's
and
one
it's
on
like
my list.
It's an oddly expensive game, and it's
it cost me like $80. Yeah,
and I remember seeing it for like $4 on our shelf when I worked at GameStop.
Oh yeah, the hindsight, dude. The hindsight's the worst part about being a collector.
I think that you have already proven yourself smart to go ahead and buy both Gollum and Kong Skull Island or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I think both of those games will end up being like, dude, like it's gone back down for some reason, but for a while there, if you had the Amazing Spider-Man 2 physically after they cut that off, that game was like gold.
You know where I think it comes from? GameStop has stock of it again. And I think that sent the price down.
Probably
because they opened up their site and they're selling it for $14. So it's like, okay. But yeah.
I want to quickly move through mine. My time run trophies were, I told you I started Superliminal. That game is fucking awesome, dude. It's so good. I loved it. Loved every second of it. I actually want to replay it again with the developer commentary turned on, just because I want to hear them talk about the game. I would love to hear some of their thought processes behind how they made some of the puzzles. So my first playthrough probably took me around 5 to 6 hours because I did a lot of exploring, but I didn't realize there were like a bunch of collectibles, like a surprisingly bunch of them. You have to let all of the stuff out of every fire extinguisher you come across in the game, and you have to pull every fire alarm. So, and then there's a bunch of other things. There's like blueprints and these chess pieces that you can find that come together and make a thing. But really, the 2 trophies I got down to as my last 2 trophies were 1 for speed running, beat the game under an hour, 1 for speed running, beat the game in 35 minutes.
Okay.
And I got both of them in my first try. And my time was 29 minutes, 28 seconds, something like that. And that was awesome because Whenever I went back to replay to get some of the collectibles I'd missed on, you just get to a point where you can like, I remembered the trophies I remembered the solutions, and you start moving through them. And it's those types of games where every now and then you're kind of like, I get the speedrun allure because it's cool. It's like,
it's
to
fun.
just feel like you're running through a game that takes a normal person 6 hours, and you were just like, I just did that shit in 29 minutes. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It makes you feel really powerful, because I remember powerful is a weird word, but really talented, because I remember like doing RE4. That's why I love the Resident Evil games so much, because I remember by the time I was finishing RE2, it was like an hour, and I would run through that whole game, and it was, you just know exactly what you're doing. You could throw grenades around corners knowing what's around the corner and like continue your strides. It feels really fun. So I get that.
It's interesting to see, but that game was awesome. And it's apparently a surprisingly rare platinum because of the speedrun trophy. Not everyone's built for that. But I think most people probably can pull it off.
Okay. I'll think about trying it.
Anyway, the next game, incredibly cute, that I played, and I'm not done with it, and I almost didn't want to break off of it to try Avatar, but dude, Yoku's Island Express is so goddamn fun. I remember the trailer whenever it was first coming out, and I thought that was a cool idea because it reminded me of Sonic Spinball, but I didn't realize how much of its little Metroidvania style presentation, it's just super fun. It's a weird mix of things you wouldn't think, but like platforming across the space, kind of Ori and the Blind Forest style, but doing it with like ping pong, with pinball
paddles,
paddles. I guess I don't know if you call them that, but bumpers, I guess, something like that. It's been incredibly fun. Also, just think the game's really cute. It's got a great style to it, beautiful visual art. The music's always bumping, doing something wild. I don't know how far you got into it earlier, but I am having a fucking blast, and it was on sale for $3.99. It came back into my memory. I was like, oh, I never played that game. Looked it up. I was like, fuck yeah, $3.99. Let's go.
Yeah. When you messaged me, I thought you were talking about Yooka-Laylee.
Oh.
And I'm still curious about that game, but I don't know that I like platformers enough to try it. But this game was fun. I did like it a decent amount.
Yeah, and this is not platforming in the traditional sense, so I think that you would like it for the Metroidvania aspects, but I don't know. I could see you liking it. I could also see you never beating it. Like, I don't know. Too. I'm probably 3/4 of the way through it. I just like been hyper on it. So at lunch today, I decided, the whole reason I even started playing it is that at lunch yesterday, I was going to play Avatar. I bought it and told it to download, but that game's pretty big. Yeah. So it wasn't done downloading. And so I was like, fuck it. I got Yoku's downloaded. So I started playing it. And then I was just like, oh shit, let's go. My God, do you have a pair of wire strippers and crimps in your hand?
I actually do, yeah.
What have you been crimping over there? You putting radios in vehicles?
Yes, I am. My my brother and my mom got me a Sony car radio. Very big fanboy over here. But I literally just texted them. They kept asking me what I wanted for my birthday, and I hate that question for Christmas, birthdays, any of that. I hate it. And so I was just like, I want a fucking car radio with Apple CarPlay. And then so that's what they got me.
Hell yeah, let's go. Good luck putting it in. I actually enjoy doing that kind of work. It's oddly calming.
Really?
Yeah.
The stress is making it fit.
It depends. Modern cars are a lot more difficult than older cars.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So good luck with that. But, most of them have got install kits that you can find. So
yeah. I'll figure it out.
There you go.
Speaking of install kits, how long?
Yeah, speaking of install kits, I installed Avatar on my PlayStation.
There you go. Thank you. Got that.
No, I'll be quick on it, and then we can get moving along. I'm curious to hear what scared you off of it, and I have a feeling that you didn't even make it out of tutorial, and I can understand potentially even why. Interesting choice for them, but I finally got past the full tutorial, which is one of those long ones. I actually appreciate that. Like, you don't see the title screen come up until like 2 hours in.
Jesus.
Yeah. But about an hour into it, you're doing like real gameplay. You're doing the mix of gameplay that I was hoping. So I remember seeing the trailers. I was like, this feels like Far Cry, which is kind of obvious because it's Ubisoft. But it's got like some hints of what how they changed that formula up when they kind of co-opted it for Horizon. So I saw some of that in there. I was like, interesting. And then I kept seeing like some of the parkour gameplay, and it would kind of cut really quickly. And I was like, bro, does this look like Mirror's Edge Catalyst? I'm totally down for this. And I'm happy to report that is exactly what this game is. It's like Far Cry meets Horizon meets Mirror's Edge, both Catalyst and the original. It's really fun. I love it. It's got problems, but it's very interesting. The most weird problem, to show the scale of the Navi, as the game continues to tell me is how it's pronounced. Anyway, to show the scale of the Navi, they do. I get it. You kind of have to, because that's what the people are. But they're so much taller than humans, and humans are a good chunk of the early enemies at the very least, and they're so small. So, like, when you're pulling like the bowstring back to aim at them, you're like, "Where is this motherfucker?"
That's pretty funny.
But yes, it's clearly a Ubisoft game. But I think it does to the Far Cry formula what I think Far Cry has been needing to actually do, which is just shaking it up in a way that still feels more in line with what Far Cry is than what Far Cry 6 did, where it just kind of started co-opting shit from other Ubisoft franchises, like the Ghost Recon Wildlands and Breakpoint and all that stuff. So yeah, I've been enjoying Avatar. Chris, I think you should at least get back into it long enough to get through to where you're actually playing in the open world, just to see if it clicks with you. But I am going to go ahead and give you a warning.
Oh, boy.
I don't know how you feel about Far Cry in general as a series.
I like the 4 and Primal.
Okay. Then there's a chance you'll like this one.
Okay.
But those games are also somewhat similar to Horizon. So depending on what you didn't like about Horizon or what didn't stick with you, like make you want to continue playing Horizon, you might face that here. I can't tell you for sure.
I don't know. I fell off. It's so bad, but I just don't like the way the characters look. I don't like the design of the Navi. I think they're disgusting. And it makes me not want to play it. I want to get through the tutorial and see the game.
I am not a huge Avatar fan from the film series, but I think that the ideas can be interesting in gameplay. So I'm glad to see someone finally do that. But I can't say yet whether or not they succeeded. I could just say that I'm about 2.5, maybe 3 hours in. And so far, I'm enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just like, I know they're different, but why does the movie look so good and the game models look so bad? Like, yes, I understand different mediums, but holy shit.
I didn't think they looked that bad. Honestly, I feel like they look exactly as strong. I didn't watch Avatar 2. They look like my memory of Avatar 1's character models were. I know Avatar 1's are still technically higher detail, but you know. So let's go ahead and get into the first question of the show, which is kind of in line with what we've played here recently. So No Fate, Sean One Neo, one of our longtime listeners, longtime patrons, he says, now that you guys have enjoyed playing RoboCop Rogue City, it's definitely me, and Chris has played some of it, what licensed game would you like to see Teyon Games do next? And he gave what I think is the clear answer in his GIF in that question, which is Dredd, Judge Dredd. And I think that's a really good choice. It's kind of in line with the 80s sci-fi action films that they've been kind of doing with like Terminator going into RoboCop. But I also think generally speaking, that's a pretty good palette to work into and has a very obvious gameplay connection. I think it's got a very obvious ability to tie into what they've done well, which is kind of taking 80s style stuff and doing something with it. I wouldn't mind seeing them take a tackle at the Aliens franchise, since a lot of people seem to have a hard time finding a way to make that franchise work. Or this one's a bit weirder. Tron. And I say that because I think Tron is rife. They did a lot of RPG light stuff in Rogue City that I'd like to see them expand on. And I actually think Tron gives them a very easy way to do that. Even if they decided to go a little more modern with its presentation and do something like Tron Legacy's look, where it's like updated and a little more striking. So yeah, that's my answer. Chris, I don't know if you have one at the gun.
Yeah, I think Predator.
Oh, Predator's a good option.
Would actually be pretty sick. I had another one. Oh God. Rambo. There you go. I would play a Rambo game.
I'm surprised no one's done like a Rambo Far Cry game.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that the problem is, and I'm even guilty of it right now, is I feel like nobody actually understands what Rambo is, not even Sylvester Stallone, who wrote the fucking character. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they've worked in that niche for a while. I wouldn't mind seeing them go far off of that. Blade Runner, but I feel like Blade Runner is a little too close to what they've kind of been doing. I'd actually kind of wouldn't mind seeing them kind of separate it up a little bit. So, but either way, I think regardless, I'd like to see them get maybe a little bit more time, maybe a little bit more budget. But as I've talked about with a few people, their games are not always the most polished. They have some glitches, they have some weird stuff. But I think that the fact that it gives this clear feeling of a labor of love and it ties really well into its respective franchises, I always feel like that quality of their games makes the other thing, like it balances that scale. It's like, okay, yeah, it's a little buggy. It's got a little bit of the character models don't look nearly as good as the rest of the game, but it's okay. I'm willing to trade those for the fact that they seem to understand the IP and know how to use it well.
I got a couple more, and my last one is, I think, the best answer. Okay, so Die Hard. That would be a great Nacon game.
Okay,
or a great These Guys game. Die Hard. MacGyver. Okay, out of the box pick, but I think it would work. Now, okay, here is the best one. The A-Team.
Okay.
That's their next game, is the A-Team.
I almost wouldn't mind seeing them really go off board and kind of do something way different. But it's like a lot of it's going to be dealing with the fact of what they've done so far is found a way to have a bigger world and a little more interactive. I think it'd be a little hard to do, but like The Thing is awesome, and it'd be really cool to see them kind of take on something like that, but it's a little more horror driven. I think you were right to point out something like, oh, Chris.
Yeah.
A They Live game.
I like that. Okay.
Where you're another character that stumbles upon, it could even be the actual dude, the wrestler.
Yeah.
He stumbles across the glasses. I think what's cool about it so far, though, and this is kind of the rough part, all the games or all the IP they've touched on so far, they could be considered canon because they exist between movies and they don't do anything that inherently contrasts the other movies. And I think that's smart. I don't exactly know where you would go with the They Live, you know? That's kind of like the who knows?
You know where they would go? It would be like LA Noire kind of thing.
I mean, maybe. I still think Blade Runner could be a pretty interesting idea. You know what I mean?
Hear me out. Blade. Punisher. I mean, I wasn't even making that joke, but yes, that is funny.
Let's just do everything. Fuck it, make a Dune game. Someone needs to make a Dune game.
I think the type of games they're making lend themselves to 80s like schlocky stuff. So I'd almost wonder if like a return to the PS2 level James Bond games from them, like that sounds like it could be really cool. Like give me a Agent Under Fire remake by them. I'm in for that. I think that would be kind of sick. They make level-based shooters that are not the greatest thing you've ever played, but they're not bad.
I kind of like how they started to, with this game, approach almost a hub world design. So if their next game could kind of expand on that a little bit, I'd be cool with that. Because there's a hub area in Rogue City that you come back to multiple times. If they just gave you a few of those, I think that could be really good, and it could help expand the games maybe just a little bit. I don't really know that they need to be longer so much as it can add a little bit of variation. Like it would have been kind of cool if in RoboCop there were two other, because like you go back to the city like 3 or 4 times, like the same area, it's like a hub. If each time you went to a hub area, it was a new hub area that was a little different, that would have been kind of cool. But there's also value from a development standpoint, it's cheaper, but also from a storytelling standpoint, you get to keep showing this hub how it's changing between the events of the game, which is actually pretty cool to see. Because it's like, well, you visit it the first time, and then the second time some stuff has changed, and there's different things going on, and you get to explore a little bit more of it that you didn't the first time, and you're like, oh, okay, interesting.
Nice. That is pretty cool.
They use it well, but I think they're an interesting developer. I just would be curious to see if anyone would give them just a little more time and a little more money, but they don't need it. I think they've already gotten my thing. Like, if they keep making the same quality of game, I will buy it and I will be happy. But it would be cool to see them just like up themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's all right. That's the first question gone. We're going to go ahead and move into the first point of news here. And that is the PS5, or rather the PS Plus extra games for December, as well as the premium games. So with Grand Theft Auto 6 being announced, it's interesting to see that PS Plus extra has got Grand Theft Auto 5, both PS5 and PS4 version, available. Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin has been added. MotoGP 2-3, Metal Hellsinger, Salt and Sacrifice, Moonscars, Mega Man 11, Gigabash, Grime, Tinykin, Prodeus, which is a game I need to get around to. It looks really cool.
It's great.
Shadowrun returns, Shadowrun Daggerfall rather. I'm thinking of the Elder Scrolls over here, and then Shadowrun Hong Kong. And then for people who are premium, some more old school games are being added. The Mega Man Legacy Collection, both 1 and 2, are being added, both PS4 versions. Thrillville for PSP has been added, as well as its sequel, Thrillville Off the Rails. And Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, the PS1 game, has been added. And I adored that fucking game whenever I was a kid. I actually played it on Dreamcast. But dude, what a game. I may download that and play it just for like straight nostalgia. That's old Patrick Warburton's, Buzz Lightyear voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a whole lot. So that's a good additions to the list, which is glad to see. Because like a lot of the games I've been playing lately are on PS Plus Extra. And it's funny because they're games I just wanted to play. And then I go to look them up. And I'm like, oh, there's actually 2 more games I didn't play. I'll just shout them out now. Carto is really cool.
Okay. What is it?
I had never even heard of it. Quick pitch of it is that you're this little girl who's flying around with her grandmother, and it's got like tribe-based stuff, so it's built around different culture. And you fly out, like there's this map, and her grandma shows that she can like change the world by moving the map pieces around on this thing, and you end up moving the map, causing a lightning storm. You fall out. And what's great about it is that the whole gameplay is finding pages of this map, opening up your map, and then rearranging the entire map that you're on to solve puzzles, find people, find where you're supposed to go, and tell the story. So it's like you'll walk and like you'll see the edge of the tile that you're on. Will just look like a map edge, and you can take a piece of the map like on this flat surface and move it over to you, and whenever you click triangle again, you can walk over to where it was originally just the edge of a map, like
nice
paper edge. And it's really cool. Good use of puzzle solving within it. Tells a really cute story. It's not too hard, it's not too easy, it's just the right type of difficulty. Not a super hard game, and a relatively straightforward platinum. There's a couple of things in a few chapters you've got to do, but yeah, I had a great time with it. So, and then, no joke, we played Monopoly Madness for like 12 hours, me, my wife, and my kid last Saturday. And that was a blast. Holy shit. It was a lot more fun than I would have ever thought.
Yeah, I've played some online Monopoly. That shit's fun as hell.
Yeah, well, this one's really different because it's like you run around with like a character model and like suck money up and resources up, and then you have to like run around and buy the properties. They go up for bid, and you can like get power-ups that like hit the other players. So I never even played online. We all just played with my controllers, which was super fun. And you can bring AI into it, and yeah, it's just you can be a menace. I spent one whole thing just constantly every time my wife would get a property and upload it, I'd either steal it or destroy it. So you can get power-ups that's like a sledgehammer or like a jackhammer, and you can just go over to their property, and if they've upgraded it, you can just lower its upgrade down by jackhammering it, or you can get a UFO ship that'll fly over and steal. So I've been having a great value at a PS Plus Extra that was completely unintentional. Superliminal was on PS Plus Extra, Carto was PS Plus Extra, Artful Escape was PS Plus Extra. almost everything I've played that wasn't RoboCop and Avatar lately has been a PS Plus extra game. So
it's a great value. When it works out, it works out.
I think it's working out really well, and it's proving itself to be a really great way for people to try indie games that they may not have. And because it's real quick, I don't have to go, "Ooh, do I really want to spend that money right now?" I could just go, "Oh, that game looks interesting. Oh shit, it's technically free for me. Great,
yeah,
I'll go ahead and try
it."
And I've liked almost every game I've downloaded from that. So there's some games I'm iffy on. Like I started Lake, and I don't know how I feel about it. But
Lake. Oh, okay.
You're just delivering stuff.
It's like that movie Plane mail that came out last year.
What's funny is it's like a far less whimsical Yoku's Island Express. Because Yoku's Island Express, you're just a mailman. You're just a beetle postman on this island. But it's so cute and unique and weird. So,
Like.
Yeah, so I think those are good additions. Next piece of news that we got here is I'm going to save that for the last, I think, right now. We're going to go into The Last of Us. Its online mode, apparently called The Last of Us Online, is dead. Naughty Dog, in a lengthy JPEG note, announced the cancellation and distilled it down to a binary choice. Take the red pill and release The Last of Us Online to the masses and become a live service-focused studio like distant cousin Bungie, or take the blue pill. Cancel The Last of Us Online and continue its lengthy pedigree as a prestige single-player studio. Its decision is now clear, as the game is dead, and Naughty Dog mentioned it had a couple of projects in the oven. There's a lot around this that is unfortunate. There's a lot around this that is actually fortunate. Whether or not we're just getting the version that's been cleaned up for public consumption, and there's actually a little more stuff behind the scenes, who knows? But at least from what we're getting to see as players and consumers, is that it seemed the decision was their own. And if that's true, and there was really no outward forces just telling them what to do, that's awesome. And I'm glad to see a developer get that level of control. I also think there's a very real chance that Bungie was like, you guys don't have what it takes to do this. And Sony was like, yeah, y'all need to not do this and just focus on what you're good at. And they got to pretend that it was their decision. I hope that that's not what it is, but the reality is that's very possibly what it is.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one to say this, but I wonder if the Bungie meeting was less about this game doesn't have what it takes and this game has what it takes. Do you really want to support it? Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me, because the thing
all it might have been is Bungie saying the game's great, but now what's your roadmap? And they were like, your roadmap is not going to cut it for a live service game.
Right. Exactly. There's a lot of things here, First of all, why does it have to be a service game? Why can't you just release it and let us have fun? I am a notorious service game gamer, and guess what? I don't play anymore. Apex Legends. Games have a natural fall off point for most people. Even now, the people who are into it, I feel like they lose people around them. I mean, I'm having that experience with Destiny where my friends are Destiny guys, and they're having to reckon a little bit with the fact that I'm like, I'm not playing Destiny unless I want to, and I don't want to run this dungeon, so I'm not going to. And I think that's the natural way that a lot of these games go, is there will be the dedicated group of people who play it, but there's going to be just as many who fall off just through natural attrition, or a new game comes out and they don't have time, and then it just goes out. So, Factions is still being played today. So I don't see any reason why this couldn't have been just hey, we've got a huge year and there's 5 battle passes and Valkyrie is making a bunch of skins and it's over now. We're stopping development on this and we're releasing The Last of Us 3. Or why couldn't it be GTA Online? Which I said to, talking to some people, I said to them, I'm like, that the crazy guy in the trailer, that looks to me almost a little bit lesser of a quality than the rest of the game. And I'm wondering if it's just because they're going to port GTA Online over. Because if you remember, when you get introduced in that game, you get introduced in a lineup. That's how you make your characters in a police lineup, and that's where he is. So maybe, who knows? Why couldn't this have been just, hey, we're porting it to The Last of Us 3, and here's The Last of Us 4. Here's The Last of Us 4 update for factions. I think it's interesting. I'm glad that they're staying a single player developer in the end. I just wish this game had been coming out.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things where there has to be a paying attention to a market. And I think that the biggest thing I can say is I understand that, like, the way that they mention it is like their ambition got higher than their ability to continue to support that ambition was. But I'm with you, like, why did it have to be live service? And at what point did you not realize the game you were making was going to be live service? Why didn't you ask yourself that question immediately when you started thinking, hey, this is going to be a separate multiplayer experience that's not tied to The Last of Us 2 and will be released separately? Does that mean that we want to make this a live service game? Or do we just want it to be a game that comes out, has a 1 to 2 year support cycle, and then drops like almost all old school multiplayer games used to do? And the answer clearly is that no game really comes out anymore with a traditional multiplayer suite. That doesn't exist. Call of Duty comes out with it, but that's all just really a tie-in to try and push people eventually into Warzone. And then that will push them into the next game. So it's like a hybrid almost. And so you look at that, but you really have to think, like, did someone not go like, hey guys, do we really want to be a live service studio when we're making this game? Did no one ask whether or not they could support a single player game and this when they first started making this into this type of game? It's a little hard to believe. Chris, you're muted, by the way.
Number 1 for TT Dog. I think that it's one of those things where I really do believe that it's just the ambition got the best of them. Because this started off...
It's possible.
Because just think about it, right? It started off as multiplayer for The Last of Us 2. And then they take it out of The Last of Us 2 because they had bigger ambitions for the project. And then they kept having bigger ambitions for the project. And then this, screenshot shows up and it's a battle royale game. You know what I mean? So it's... I really do think they were just like, oh, this would be really cool. This would be really cool. And here's the thing. The idea of a battle royale with the gameplay of The Last of Us 2 sounds fucking awesome. That sounds so cool to think of, like, what that could be. Is that a 10-player battle royale that's just entirely stealth? That sounds sick, I don't know.
Yeah, and then certain players will be bombastic and be able to go all out.
Right.
But, I mean, you're kind of in a weird position anyway, right? Though, because some people are going to want factions or The Last of Us Online. The expectation for what it could be has already been set for anybody who played factions originally on PS3 or PS4. And that is actually a very beloved multiplayer mode. It's actually one of my favorite multiplayer modes in any game ever because it was unique. Definitely at the time, it wasn't normal that you did this, and it was very team oriented. And there was a lot of, if you get shot, you can heal, and it's all about hiding and being tactical. Yes, other games have it, but not normally in that type of world and game style. It's normally you get that type of work from something that's a little more like SOCOM or something like that. So it was cool having that element in something that felt a little more whimsical and like, oh, okay, whimsical is probably the wrong word but it felt larger than just, hey, we're trying to simulate warfare.
Yeah, it did.
So to that end, that's kind of cool. So if you change it too much, then people are like, well, that's not what I wanted out of The Last of Us Online. But for everyone that didn't really play that, they don't have that expectation. I think my immediate thought to this is I think that it would have been really cool for them to have done, and this is going to I'm going to go ahead and ask the question. So Kiki, one of the longest listeners of the show, real long friend, he says, do y'all think Naughty Dog should still put out Factions 2, as he's calling it, without the live service part of it? I feel they should just port over Factions 1 and boom, done. I think my answer for this would be what I was about to say, which is I wish this decision would have been made before The Last of Us 2 Remastered was announced. They would have thought to themselves, like, listen, guys, we're about to have The Last of Us 2 Remastered announced. We have this multiplayer. We know it works. can we scale it back a little bit, cut all the live service aspects of it, and just trim it down to a multiplayer experience that we can put as part of The Last of Us 2 Remastered as a value add so that people feel even more good about, oh, cool, the game is getting remastered. Maybe it didn't need it, but cool, I also have this new mode I didn't get before. And you can say at the same time, like, hey, here's The Last of Us 2 Remastered. We've decided to cancel what we wanted The Last of Us Online to be, but we've decided to call it Factions, put it inside The Last of Us 2 Remastered, and you can play it for what it is. It's not wasted development at that point. You're still doing something with it. Because I think what kind of sucks about this is it feels like 4 to 5 years of development that it sounds like it's ostensibly just being thrown away. And it is super unfortunate when it's like, there is a version of this where you just add this into The Last of Us 2 Remastered and say, here it is, PS5 only, bam, bam, bam. I'm not saying that it has to happen or that it's even reasonable, but as a consumer who has been looking forward to this, I think it's an interesting solve without wasting without fully wasting your development.
Yeah, I guess the argument I've been making on that point is that I would not be surprised if what's the mode called? The roguelike mode?
I can't remember what it's called either, but yes,
either
the
way,
roguelike aspect where you can play as any of the characters, more or less.
Exactly. I'd be willing to bet that there's aspects of what the multiplayer was going to be in there, even if it's just, hey, this was going to be a battle royale map, but instead we've bumped up the AI to 50 AIs per round and you have to fight them. I think it'll be something along those lines. I don't think it's wasted development because, other than the money, they did come out of it with a lot of experience, and they did come out of it with a new set of skills for when they do Uncharted 5 and they put a multiplayer in there that's not supposed to go for very long and is really just an added bonus, like Factions was supposed to be, So
that's actually my takeaway from this is hoping that this doesn't scare Naughty Dog away from doing any multiplayer, because surprisingly people loved Factions and people loved Uncharted 3's multiplayer and people loved Uncharted 4's multiplayer, and Uncharted 2's multiplayer was surprisingly good to be a kind of last minute addition.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's an unfortunate situation. I wish I would have seen it, but hopefully they're making a new IP that is clearly those cards from The Last of Us 2.
Yeah, who knows? We'll see, because of course they're just being cheeky and not saying too much, but what if The Last of Us 3 doesn't happen? Because if The Last of Us 3 is happening, you just go, okay, you just take that work and you just move it over and it becomes the foundation for the multiplayer mode we're going to include with The Last of Us 3, and we'll go back to doing just a normal multiplayer mode. Maybe. But maybe not.
The Last of Us 3 is definitely happening. If you're not going to do it, if you're not going to do Last of Us 3, you shouldn't have done The Last of Us 2.
Well, you shouldn't have done the show. That's actually, I think the moment you did the show, you've set the expectation that The Last of Us is going to be like this long running thing. But who knows, right? It depends on how much control
not if you ask Konami.
Given, right? Yeah, fair enough. Let's go ahead and hop into the next piece of news here. Chris Avellone, one of the founders of Obsidian, spoke on X about some of the projects the team pitched, and most notably their pitches to now family member Bethesda Softworks. Avellone said that he had multiple projects denied by the publisher, including Fallout and Elder Scrolls games. He said his Elder Scrolls pitch was intended to serve the same purpose as New Vegas, as an interstitial middle game between Skyrim and Elder Scrolls 6, providing more adventures in those universes in the years between the next mainline titles. That is a crazy... This has been kind of known for a while, at least from the Fallout side. He's referenced that they've tried pitching the idea for another New Vegas-like game before. Mm-hmm. But to learn that there was anything remotely approaching that from the Elder Scrolls side is really interesting. Because I would have actually killed to see what Obsidian would have done writing-wise within the world of Tamriel. Yeah. Because I do think the writing is much better in the Fallout game that they did. So it's interesting.
Do you think they would have made more Bethesda style games if the online discourse hadn't been Fallout New Vegas makes Fallout 3 look like shit?
Honestly, I do think, and I've thought this for a long time, as soon as Todd Howard kind of started coming out and being like, yeah, well, we didn't really want them working within our IPs because we wanted more control over them. I was like, they were worried that what I've been saying for a while, their already dated gameplay is going to start looking more and more dated the more that other people interact and start making games. And then their writing is going to start coming under more scrutiny. Because their writing has also been kind of for a while. Yeah. But back then, when the games were that big and there was nothing like it, you were willing to overlook it because it was unique and interesting. But now that other games have come out, like The Witcher 3, and had bonkers writing in a big RPG world, you're kind of like, all right, well, what's their excuse? And so things have compounded. I think Bethesda are aware enough of their shortcomings that they knew if they kept letting Obsidian make games in their IP, they would have gotten dried out even faster. Now that's a weird thing because all their games have sold well, so it doesn't really matter what the discourse is around them. If Starfield's still one of the best-selling games of this year, they've made your money. They don't give a shit if you really like the game that much.
Here's the one point about that. Isn't there an argument that if a Fallout game or an Elder Scrolls game came out every 2 years, they would start being judged significantly more harshly?
Also, yes. But at this point, even if you had, with how long it takes to make games, right? If you were to say, hey, we want to make an Elder Scrolls game 4 years after Skyrim, 6 years after Skyrim,
1,000 years after Skyrim.
Point being is that right now, we're still probably talking another 5 to 6 years, if not more, before we get to the Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah.
From the way that they were talking. And when you look at it from that point, what was the harm but prior to being purchased to being like, yeah, fuck it, Obsidian, you can make an Elder Scrolls game. We're not going to fucking touch it. So that's kind of where I'm coming. I get your point. I do think if it was like every 2 years, kind of like what we saw with Fallout 3 and then Fallout New Vegas, that was a little too frequent. And I think that would start to catch up on them. But I think if you're like, hey, we don't want to overload our stuff, but hey, we're really digging into this Starfield game, which is our new IP, and that means we're going to have to push either Fallout or the Elder Scrolls pretty far back to make room for this.
Yeah.
So make one of those games. And they go, well, look, we got Fallout 76 on in development right now. So how about you make an Elder Scrolls game? Because we're not going to touch the Elder Scrolls for another 10 years at the point where they were probably having this conversation.
You know what's crazy is at the time of this, you assume these conversations, Bethesda was doing pretty well. I almost wonder why they didn't go, okay, we'll buy you. And you're now part of Bethesda Softworks and you do Fallout.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost wonder if it was something as simple as Todd Howard being like, well, even if we did that, I'd want creative control of the game.
But he could still have it. He's the producer. All you do is bring those people in-house. This is not at a time where people were like, I have to work
I don't know
from
that
home.
Obsidian wanted that.
Maybe not.
I think if Obsidian were like, hey, we'll make an Elder Scrolls game, but we want to be able to make it without your hand. Which, to be fair, like Oblivion was not Todd Howard. Like he did not actually direct that game. He directed Fallout 3. And so a different team was working on it, but he did produce Oblivion. He was involved in Oblivion's creation, which is something that not everyone knows. So to that end, I don't know, but yeah, it is interesting to see. Maybe Bethesda were doing pretty well, but not well enough to be able to just be like, hey, we're going to buy you Obsidian. Or maybe Obsidian didn't want to get bought at that point. Clearly that's changed for a lot of developers. At one point, Insomniac said that they wanted to remain independent, but now look who decided to get snatched up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like all it took was Fuse or whatever the hell the game ended up being called.
Fuse and maybe something else.
It took Fuse and the Xbox game, Sunset Overdrive, for them to be like, "Ugh, maybe we don't want maybe we don't want to own our games and be responsible for when they don't do well enough."
Right. King's Ransom.
Throw that out there. I mean, it's kind of where I think we are on that. But it would have been really cool to see them let someone else play around in the world of Tamriel, because that we've not seen that. I think that there is a lot of interesting value in being like, in looking at New Vegas and being like, hey, this was someone else's take on what a more Bethesda-like Fallout is still, because it's not like Fallout New Vegas was more like Fallout 1 or 2. It's still a very structurally similar game to Fallout 3.
I think the weirdest part about them wanting to have so much control over the IP is that Bethesda is notorious for running roughshod over their own lore. So it's almost like, what are you trying to control? You take, Fallout, there's tons of stuff that was established in 1 and 2 that they just went, yeah, that's not real. And then it's like, okay, so then what do you care if Obsidian makes a game? Who cares?
Yeah.
It's weird, but whatever. Yeah, times are changing. They're going to make a Fallout game now because Philly Spencer says so.
True the hat. All right, so we got one more piece of news before we get into the bigger part of the episode, and we got some questions around that big part. But for a second, let's take a detour into PS5 Pro Boulevard over here, and see what the rumors and leaks are talking about for it. So we've long had Tom Henderson talking about a PS5 Pro, as well as some people on YouTube like Moore's Law is Dead, and all these different people have long been talking about a PS5 Pro and the likelihood of it, and what it would probably look like and when to expect it. All these things have been being, postulated and sometimes considered to be leaks. So Jeff Grubb of Giant Bomb actually hops into that discussion and brings some information of his own. So he says, quote, "It's almost certainly real." And he goes on to actually clarify that the specs for the system are not finalized. It's still in the works, but a new technology that's being developed by Sony that is realistically their take on what is both NVIDIA's DLSS and to a lesser extent AMD's, super, I actually can't think of what it's called right now. FRS? Isn't that what's called? I can't remember what that actually stands for. But yes, so it's some form of AI-assisted super sampling so that they can run a game at a lower resolution and have this process upscale it back up so that you don't see that loss in quality. It's something that's really big about NVIDIA's cards, and it's what FRS, or I'm pretty sure it's what it's called, FSR maybe, super resolution. Yeah, I think FRS is a Scion that no longer being made. Chris, you're muted again. Two for TT Dog. So this is kind of interesting because this was not too far off of what Sony did with the PS4 Pro, but they're pushing a lot further here if this is to be believed. And there's a patent that has come out that seems to kind of coincide with this. So the upscaling technology is the main feature, and that's what they're leveraging for PS5 Pro, apart from also having just generally more powerful console. And if you remember a while back, there was a talk about them being able to push higher fidelity ray tracing, and that seems to be part of the way they want to do it, is to offshoot some of the raw power needed in order to meet the resolution, and instead let that happen elsewhere, and then use that extra power to push ray tracing even further. And looking back, I think this is a reasonable thing to think, because I don't know if y'all remember, this is probably for people who are more into the tech side of things, but when Mark Cerny did the PS4 Pro event where they revealed that and started talking about it, he kept talking about how trying to brute force 4K was a very hard thing to do at a budget-oriented price at the time, which is what Xbox's choice was to do with Scorpio, which was $500. And they were like, we want the PS4 Pro to be more competitively priced, and we think we can achieve similar output by faking 4K, basically, and then allowing these extra things to happen. That is the same basic idea here. Mark Cerny was the system architect for PS5. He's very likely the system architect for a PS5 Pro. This seems directly in line with what we've already seen from Sony. Give a little bit more power, but be more smart with how we utilize that power by offshooting it onto something else that can give us similar results, and then we can do so cheaper, whereas Xbox is across the board, they've always been, but we're just going to brute force it. We want 4K. We're just going to make a system that puts out in 4K, whether or not it does it very consistently or not, but that's those are your two approaches, right? And they both have positives and they both have negatives. So I think that this is a very interesting one. Final thing, Grubb talks about a release date, sharing that from what he's heard, it will potentially arrive in September of 24. And if I remember correctly, I think he mentioned that they were already saying like dev kits are probably already going out right now for people to start working on it. So this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, would you buy a PS5 Pro? And if so, at what price point? And would you want what's being talked about here? Like for you as a consumer, would this be enough for you to satiate you and be like, cool, that's worth the extra money? Chris's dogs are being sacrificed.
Yeah.
Abraham's in his house.
Sounds like anyway.
I'm sorry, son.
I mean, it depends on the price and what it does. I mean, I would probably be in for it just because it's the shiny new toy, right? But yeah,
well, you got a Pro. You got a PS4 Pro, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so if you're thinking of it around there, and think of it as a similar power jump. And think of it from a similar price standpoint where it's something that'll be probably $500. Let's give it a little bit of a bump. Let's say it does kind of what Scorpio did. Let's call it $600. At $600, seeing a similar boost in terms of comparative to what you know of PS5 to that standpoint, would you be interested in that? Or at what point do you think you'd kind of be like, man, I don't care?
I definitely would. If it was one of those things where it's like, 4K 60, 100% of the time, ray tracing, sure, absolutely.
Do you think in that standpoint you'd still like to see like a hyper resolution 4K 30 still? Just for people who literally don't give a shit about 30?
No, I think at that point the standards, like what if you can get it to the point where it's going 4K 60 and it's giving you ray tracing and it's giving you HDR and it's giving you 4K, like what is super 4K going to do for you at 30?
Yeah. Well, I think what it really is you wouldn't be getting 4K, true 4K, right? That's kind of the whole point of this DLSS comparison point. Is that it would still be some kind of recreated 4K, which is already what we get right now with the PS5, right? If you play Gran Turismo, it says it's running in 4K, and it is. It's outputting in 4K, but the internal resolution it's going off of is more like 1800p. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that was true. Like a lot of the PS4 Pro games, like Horizon Zero Dawn, I think was like a 1440p game that was being re-projected up to 4K. And so you reach that point of like maybe the more power gives you a 100% no DLSS equivalent. This is a straight 4K presentation, 4K pixel by pixel, no anything, very dense. Everything can be a little more dense. Particles can be more dense. There'll be more light sources, even crazier ray tracing. But this is like fidelity mode all over again. Or would you really prefer to see gaming move past the point where it tries to leave 30 frames per second behind, unless it's in a type of like a story-driven game, like a Life is Strange game or something?
I think if we have the power, move past it.
Okay,
like the standard should.
I'm ultimately with you because like I noticed Avatar was weird because it didn't ask me my preference before playing. So it was in 30 frames per second at first. But as soon as I had a menu where I could hit start and change it, I went over to performance and immediately thought it looked and felt better to me. Like clearly it actually looked a little worse, but the smoothness of 60 frames per second looks good to me. And so it makes up for the actual clearer picture of a 30 frames per second,
Yeah, I've just never seen enough of a difference. And I've been at a point with a couple games where I thought the 60 FPS mode looked better either way. So
than the fidelity?
Yeah. I don't know. It's something I'm interested in, but it's not a must-have.
One of the things I thought was wild, it made more sense when the Pro came out because 4K TVs were becoming pretty ubiquitous and they were becoming pretty cheap for people to get. Yeah. One thing I saw here is one of the leaks mentioned that they would have the ability for games to output at 8K.
Why?
My first question, like those aren't even as dense in the market as 4K TVs were when PS4 Pro was coming out.
How many more Ks do you need? Isn't 4 not enough?
Yeah, I mean that's one more than the worst Ks.
That's a good point.
So, I mean, who knows? Maybe more isn't bad.
Okay. Let's go 8, but don't go 9 because then that's just triple. Oh God,
That's a good point. To the power of 3. Now, yeah, I think that one's interesting. I have often wondered as I look at like my 4K TV whether or not I could see myself caring to really push past it. And dude, like my new TV looks so incredible that I see no reason, unless I wanted like 100-inch TV, I see no reason to go to 8K because you're not going to really be able to tell considering how small your pixel density is. Definitely as I get a little older, my eyesight starts to leave me a little bit. I have to, Chris, I have to squint for subtitles every now and then now. Just a little bit.
Oh no.
It kills me.
You're old.
I've got to go to the eye doctor for the first time in my life.
Times are changing, brother.
Oh, you got to take the dub. I got 30 years without it, you know. My wife's been wearing glasses since like middle school. So, you know, it's her fault. I contracted it from her. All right. We're going to move on into the last piece of news here. And this one's kind of interesting because I want to make it very clear right now what Chris and I have kind of discussed before the show, right? So this kind of came out last night, this morning, about Insomniac's leak blowing wide open. The company that had hacked them and threatened to leak seemingly has dumped some of the information, or someone bought it and they decided to dump it. Who knows exactly how that went about, but regardless, there are leaks galore out and about that are, for all intents and purposes, they should be believed. They look very legit. Everything I've heard, they seem legit. And so, of course, it's been being talked about today across social media. It's being talked about in the Discord that we have. If you'd like to join, you can head into the description, whether you're watching or listening, and click in. We'd love to have you. But, you know, some of that came up today like, oh, well, here's the leaks. And then here are links to the leaks for anybody who wants to dig in deeper. And as Chris and I were kind of preparing for the show, he texted me the other day and was like, oh, do you want to do the leaks? And I kind of get the nature to go towards that. And we have a question. We have actually a lot of questions. This is a surprisingly thought about topic today about when you should, when you shouldn't, whether you should, whether you shouldn't, and if you even care to dig in and look at these type of things. So I'm going to kind of front load a couple of questions that are similar. So the first question, Chris, comes from Sweet Gran Turismo Jones, and he says, do you think game leaks, especially from hackers for blackmailing purposes, should be covered or given light in the media or on podcasts? And of course, as a podcast, and he submitted this question in response to a prompt that mentioned that we were going to talk in some detail or to some degree about the leaks. And I think to go inside with that, we have Rude Days 93, who has hit up in the Discord and said, I'm curious what your opinion is about certain segments of the gaming media. And he mentions Kinda Funny, VGC, Gamatsu, etc., not covering the leaks. Just in my opinion, it kind of seems like a weird double standard when you could argue 50% of gaming coverage comes from leaks. So I think we need to take those two questions and kind of reconcile them into a single question or at least a single discussion about leaks and why people choose to or not to talk about them and whether they should or shouldn't and what the value is one way or the other there. So Chris, when you messaged me and you said, you know, oh, you're wanting to talk about the leaks before you really knew what my response was, what kind of drove you to ask that?
Because I had no intention of talking about the leaks, and I still kind of don't really have any intention of talking about them.
So what does that entail? Like, what is not talking about the leaks entail? Because I think you brought up pre-show when we talked a little bit, kind of a version that you seem to be okay with.
Yeah,
that was seemingly in line with mine, right?
Yeah, I think talking about the fact that it happened is fine, but I think what I said to you was like, if we're gonna talk about some stuff, we just talk about all of it, because at that point we're trying to play like too cute by half, right? Where it's just kind of like, oh well, we're not talking about the stuff that really sucks for them, we're just talking about the fact that this game only made this much money. You know what I mean? And I
Sure.
think at that point, you should just talk about it. I think the thing for me, and this situation is a little different for me, is that this came by Insomniac and Sony and Marvel being held hostage. And that's where I think the difference is. I think I said it to Blake because we had this conversation a little bit. And he's like, I don't really see the difference. And to me, it's your child runs away versus your child was kidnapped and held for ransom. And I think that's the difference. The NVIDIA leak, they did that. That was their fault. Right? Rockstar also hacked and also held for ransom. And I think a lot of people got really into the fact that it's Rockstar and we're willing to talk about it. But I don't think we went very deep on this show about it.
We didn't.
We talked about the fact that it happened, but you weren't sitting here. We weren't sitting here talking about the fact that Lucia's butt jiggles when she walks, or there are guns in a Grand Theft Auto game. We didn't have that conversation. I think this is just me being honest with my feelings on it, right? I think the only reason to cover these leaks is SEO farming and trying to hit on the greatest topic and having this conversation so that Brett, when he puts the show up tomorrow, can go, we're talking about Wolverine and this new game that has just been announced. And I think that there are much better ways for us to farm SEO than talking about information that was gained at the barrel of a gun. If Brett and I wanted to farm SEO, Brett could have sucked it up and watched The Last of Us, and we could have done an extra show for 30 minutes every week and had that content out there and grown the show that way. To me, us going into the details of financials that we're not supposed to see, slides and internal presentations that we're not supposed to see, announcements for games that we wouldn't hear about for 5-10 years, for what? Like, what does it benefit knowing that there's a game at the end of a tunnel that I'm really excited about? Like, really, the best thing that can come out of the conversation between me and Brett is me going, I was right, nah, 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 and then moving on, because there's nothing to be gained from having this conversation. There's nothing positive to be gained from it. At least
the conversation of digging into the details.
Right, exactly.
Right? I just want to make sure I'm fully understanding your point.
To me, the difference is that this information was stolen and held ransom. And I don't think that Brett and I have covered anything in that way. You know, like I said, NVIDIA was on them. Even to the extent of that GTA 5 trailer that leaked early, that's because Rockstar decided to upload it early to YouTube. Like, that's why that stuff happens. It was up there. Someone took it down, put buy BTC over it, and sent it out early. And that's terrible for Rockstar, but it was preventable. I think a lot of the leaks that we've talked about in depth, especially NVIDIA, were entirely the fault of the company and entirely preventable. And I don't think having a conversation that only serves really to grow our audience for a week is a good reason to do that.
Yeah, I think to your point there, right, that specific little bit, I really appreciate that you, of course, brought up behind the scenes, like, hey, do you want to watch The Last of Us and us do a show? And I think if I had been interested in The Last of Us as a show, we would have done that not strictly because of wanting to SEO farm, but because we had interest in it and it's beneficial for getting in front of new audience. Well, one of the things I appreciated, as soon as you were like, hey, do you want to do it? And I was like, I don't really have any interest in watching the show. You weren't like, come on, you got to do it or anything. You were just like, oh, okay. And you let it go. And because I really appreciate the general sense of this show of, I don't think we've ever done anything on this show for the sake of just trying to build an audience.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's reflected in the fact that we don't have nearly as big of an audience as we could if we chose to give into all these things. But I think that we tend to run, not in comparison to anyone else, but just in comparison to what we could run individually, I think we tend to run a fairly honest show where when we're here and we're talking, we're just saying what we feel like. And that sometimes comes with people being like, I wish they would have done this, but we weren't feeling it. Or I wish that they wouldn't have talked about this, but we weren't feeling it. And that's just kind of where we are. But what were you going to mention?
No, and to be clear, like, I don't know that I expressed it to you, but like, I disagreed that with you on The Last of Us. I think you should have watched it, but I think, and we should have done that. But I think what makes the show is that if you had said something that I wasn't interested in, and I would feel comfortable saying no, and that's the thing. Just because I think both of us know intrinsically that had we done that, and the next day, every day after The Last of Us, we had an episode on YouTube, that would have done wonders for the show and probably for us. But you didn't want to do it. We didn't fight about it, just like a lot of stuff that we've done together where it's like, you don't want to do this. And I'm sure if I told you, hey, I don't want to do this, I'm telling you right now that I don't want to have this conversation.
And 100%. And that's at one point. So like in the Discord earlier, some people were like, well, y'all could talk about this aspect or this aspect. And I'll tell you, like, from my own standpoint, I mostly agree with what they're talking about. And I want to get into that in a second in terms of the actual parts I think would be okay for me as an individual to talk about and kind of give the reason as to why I feel that way. But I think where Chris is coming from also makes total sense. I think not talking about any of it is a very reasonable standpoint and position to be at. And I agree with your general sense that we talk about leaks sometimes. We do. And I know that some people listen to the show and they don't want to be spoiled on some things. But we also know that we are generally a show that talks about the happenings around PlayStation. So we try and talk about things while minimizing just how spoilery you get. We try and stay at the same level as anyone who's just watching trailers for the game that are official is putting out typically. But every now and then, a rumor or a leak will come out and we'll talk about it a little more in depth. And you're right. There's something about it feeling different because it's because of someone's bad intent. It's like a fucked up version of the trolley problem.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if you've seen it, but there are two versions of the trolley problem where one of them is that you move a lever, and if you move the lever, of course, one person gets killed, but if you don't move the lever, 5 people get killed. And then the flip version of that is you're on a bridge. There's a very heavy set person that weighs so much that in this fictional version of the thing, if we were to push them off the bridge, the train would hit them, kill only them, and save the 5 people. And they've done this test with people, and almost ubiquitously, everyone preferred pulling the lever to pushing someone because the act of physically touching the person felt more like they were responsible for the aftermath than just simply changing a lever to try and minimize the position. And you're doing the same thing. You're killing one person in this scenario, but the intent behind it is vastly different.
Yeah. It's the press this button, get $1 million, and someone in the world dies. It's the same thing. Like, I'll press that button a fucking million times. I don't give a shit.
But it's interesting to see how that comes around because I think that leaks are an inherent part of the very online nature of every industry now. And you see leaks in literally every industry. The automobile industry has leaks. The movie industry has leaks. Well, if you can consume it, it will get leaked if there's a way.
I mean, the iPhone 3G leaked. Some dude, the Apple engineer left it on in a bar. Like, this all happens, but I think you're saying where I think the difference is. All of these things were self-inflicted. The Apple engineer left the 3G in the bar.
Well, look, you can long form your way around to making it anybody's fault. Realistically, I'm sure someone just heard that and they've worked up a way to say their security wasn't good enough, therefore it's their fault that someone was able to get in and hijack them, therefore it's their fault, so this is self-inflicted. I think obviously the intent there is vastly different. So,
and if this
looking
at
that, go ahead.
If this had all leaked without the pay us $2 million thing, we'd be talking about it. I would have
Very
no
likely, yeah.
problem talking about it. But once they put the gun to their head, I'm like, now to me, I don't feel like this is worth talking about.
Well, it feels like there's a more human cost to it all. Whether or not there really is, it's definitely the perception of it. It feels a lot grosser.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot to be said about the fact that my Twitter feed was filled with sad Insomniac employees. And when this happened to Rockstar, I didn't see that. I didn't see it when Nvidia leaked, and I didn't see it when Capcom leaked. So that probably is a factor to me. But I think, it's funny because we'd be willing to talk about these leaks, but you talked about in the Discord that for the show, we were like, well, why are we announcing games so early? Why is Wolverine being announced
clearly this is the reason,
years early?
And you've got to get ahead of everything.
And then we want to sit here and have a conversation about a game that's coming out in 7 years. Why?
If we're lucky.
No, exactly. That game is coming out in 10 years. But you know what? So why are we talking about it? Like, what's the point?
I think to back away, because we're clearly not mentioning what is shown, but to go into the actual bit that I think is reasonable to discuss and to kind of give reason as to why I think it, you are correct. We are not supposed to see these financials. We're not supposed to see a lot of things, but we sometimes in this industry see things that we clearly were never intended to see. Case in point, Sony's policy around being cross-play with places involving them getting payments from the people who have the game as a means for potential lost revenue. We were definitely not intended to see that, but because of what happened, we ended up seeing it. So that is there. But I think the reason that I'd be okay personally, on a personal level, but I'm also not like, hey, I'm going to push to make sure we talk about it. I think the financials thing is an interesting standpoint because if you look at the value of each one, I think there's less value in looking at a roadmap of what you hope is coming with all your next couple of games that are contingent on a bunch of things that may make them not happen. There's so many things that could happen to make those games either not come or not come when this leaked information says they're coming. That's one thing to look at. But also, I think that takes away from the actual excitement of getting to eventually learn about something. That is a literal unknown quantity entirely from the way that we do it. So we can talk about Wolverine real quick. Wolverine got leaked, right? But if it'd be different, we don't know the other games that were listed. We can speculate all day long, and some people who have speculated have been correct on what is coming. But point being, I think, is that it's still nebulous. You don't really know. And there's excitement from the broad community about one day seeing those things revealed and then one day seeing them in action and then hopefully one day playing them. I think financials are really interesting because I think as long as we don't talk about the projected financials of how they hope the unannounced games will be doing, looking at the financials of the games that are already out, I think does have a value for us and from someone who's looking at it who wants to go, well, what might drive them towards this certain decision? And it doesn't mean we have to, but I don't think it's crazy to say this game made this much money, which either was considered a success or a failure. This game made this much return on investment versus this much return on investment. I think that that's an interesting standpoint to be able to look at how a company may go one way or the other and why certain decisions were made, even decisions as simple as why they decided to get purchased or not, why they decided to move away from wanting to remain independent to instead being like, maybe the safety of being under an umbrella corporation is worth the risk of being shut down entirely. All these different things that come down. So I personally would be comfortable with that. But it's not a subject that I want to broach so much that I would push you into talking about it. So I'm very easy to say, like, yeah, you don't want to talk about it? Great. We don't have to talk about it.
No, look, if you want to talk about it, that's fine. I just think I think you have to filter what you're talking about. Because if you talk about one of the financial slides, we have to talk about the whole thing. So that's a decision for you to make.
Yeah. No,
I've said my piece. I feel comfortable. Anyone wants to come after us for talking about it, I railed against it, but the audience does want to hear about it, and Brett wants to talk about it. So we talk about it. That's fine, but I've made it clear that I don't think it's particularly right to talk about it, and I've said why. But if IGN can fucking put it as their headline, come at me. I don't give a shit.
Of course we can too, but here's the difference, Chris. Because this is just something I like to do. Look, I got a family, I've got a career, I've got things I have to do. This show is something fun that I'm glad we've been able to do for, at least I've been able to do for 6 years at this point. And you've been able to do for 2.5 of those years to some degree.
That, yeah.
So when you look at it from that standpoint, I don't like the idea of pushing in anything that the other person doesn't want to talk about if we can minimize that. And the reality is that we can, because this is our show. We're not beholden to anyone besides the listeners. And the reality is this could be viewed so pessimistic, what I'm about to say. But the reality is that as much as I love this show and I love getting to do it, and I love that we get to spend time and talk and hang out, and I enjoy it. It's a highlight of my week. There are stressors to it. I have to edit this full thing and get it out and put it up. I have to try and stay ahead of making sure that we engage with you guys to get certain call to actions out. There are stressors to it. If we were to stop doing this show right now, I would mourn that it's not doing it anymore, but it wouldn't fundamentally change my life. And I think the upside to that approach is that I never feel compelled to do anything that I would not feel right doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing about that is, Chris, you don't want to talk about it? Literally all I needed to hear, we're going to keep going. So all you really need to know from this is, hey, a leak happened. It was threatened. We talked about the fact that it was threatened last week. That threat was made true. Unfortunately, if you don't want to see anything in relation to this leak, you are going to have to be very careful online if you care that much. So it's something to be said. Be mindful. If you want to block people or you block certain words on X or whatever, go for it.
Yeah, and I look, I think in the end, if we didn't have a Patreon and we weren't making some kind of money off this, I would feel less weird about it. But I do think talking about a crime for money is weird. But here's the thing. If you
fair.
if you have two brain cells to rub together, nothing in this leak should surprise you. So it's honestly, to me, not even that interesting, because I'm pretty sure you and I on this very show have been like, I think this is what they should do. And guess what? I was certainly right. And so that's all you should really need to know. Go delve further into it. But this is
what
all
I thought
obvious.
was really interesting is we were both correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, and the financials make that a little interesting, because you would look at that and go, if that's true, you wouldn't have thought that this would be the way it's moving forward. But at least right now, that's the intention. So we're gonna move off of that, but we're gonna move off of it with a very simple question that is not specific to this and more specific to leaks in general. And I think Chris is kind of in a sense answered it, but Sweet Gran Turismo Jones' follow-up question was, and another question, do you actually look at leaks yourselves? Do they get you excited or do you avoid them? And I'll tell you, I tend not to look at leaks. I don't like to be spoiled, but I don't like to be spoiled of an entire story. I don't necessarily mind the spoiling of the existence of something that's something someone wants to make. I have perused very small bits of this. I wouldn't say they've excited me, but I think what it is that this one is coming at a time where something I think was hopefully not the way things were going to go was a potential. So I wanted to kind of look at enough in to see if I could make sense of why that choice was being made, even though it seems obvious. And so I was curious. And so I did look at the financials. I did look at that side. And I looked at a very, very little bit of what was actually leaked for Wolverine. And mainly because I think it's going to inform how I want to play it. And eventually I'll see this in a more official capacity. And even whatever opinion I formed today from what I saw is very possible to change with a more official reveal in a quality and in a more finished state. But it was enough for me to kind of just be lightly intrigued. Most of the time I avoid spoilers or leaks or anything like that because I don't find them to be very compelling. And I find that most of the time they run the risk of of hampering my enjoyment of a title.
Mm-hmm.
So,
raise my hands in the air. Maybe it's hypocritical what I'm about to say, but I've read through all of this. I watched all of this.
Well, but what you're saying is that the leak is there. You chose to partake in it, but you're not necessarily choosing to spread
I don't feel the need to profit off it. And I know that sounds ridiculous from a guy doing a podcast with, as much as we love our audience, a very small audience.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But that to me is the line, right? I don't want to be seen as profiting off this. I think that sounds bad. And honestly, quite frankly, I would love to have a job in this industry. And I don't want someone from Insomniac going, "Oh, we listened to your old podcast. You spent 4 hours talking about all our private information getting leaked out."
Fair. It's to your point though, right? Like the potential chance of hypocrisy. I don't really, it's like I mentioned, Blake had shouted out that, if I was interested in Avatar, I mentioned that I picked it up and he was like, "Oh, well, you could have just spent $18 or something to that degree for a single month of Ubisoft Plus or whatever it's called." And I had referenced that while I appreciated that that was an option and it's cool that it's out there for people, I, like your choice here, have been thinking a lot lately due to music and other industries and how things are getting turned because of this push towards subscription and how it can potentially hurt certain creators. And so I've decided that I wanted to buy Avatar. Did I know for sure I was going to like it? No. Could I have gotten it for cheaper? Yes. And I was aware of that. But I made the decision that I have enough money to actively say, I'm going to take the risk, buy the game for $70, support the developers. Even if I don't like it, that's fine. I have the money to make that decision. Also, this was rewards points, so it's not like the end of the world. The risk I have in it's very low. But what I'd mentioned is that I've been benefiting from PlayStation Plus a lot lately. Mm-hmm. I don't consider that to be hypocrisy, that I see a lot of the downsides to subscriptions, and there are positives, as we mentioned. All things have got positives and negatives. Nothing's perfect. But I don't want to actively participate in driving the industry more toward a subscription thing by actively leaning toward it as my way of playing. If it goes that way, regardless of what I attempt to do, that's fine, and I will adapt accordingly. But right now, when there's a clear decision for me to make, I am choosing to both partake in a subscription service or games that are in a service I already pay for so that I can play online, as well as buy games instead of adding one, because I can do that. And I just don't want to actively, push toward that. So it's like you read the leak, mm-hmm. but that doesn't mean that you're hypocritical, because you're not trying to benefit off of it in some way. And you're not trying to immediately spread it to someone else or make it hard for people to ignore. There's a bunch of reasons. You're not hypocritical just because you chose to view the information, right? Because viewing it is not inherently the thing that you had an issue with. It's the spread of it as someone who has an audience and a means to do so.
Right. Exactly. In terms of answering the question, I get to tell a story about, I think, the only time that I've ever been angry at Brett in my whole life so far, because it explains where my head is at with leaks. So, and this is technically a spoiler for Spider-Man No Way Home, but it's in the commercials, so I think you'll be okay. Before that movie came out, it was clear. Skip spoilers right now. It was clear that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were coming back. Like, it was obvious. But Brett, the day I was going to see the movie, confirmed it. And that pissed me off. Because I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't know it was going to happen.
So Chris is right. That is what happened. But what Chris is also leaving out is that as soon as I sent it, I deleted it. But Chris clearly had already seen it. And as soon as I hit send, I was like, oh, why the fuck did I do that? Because Chris has done the same thing to me. And this is how I know. Chris has sent something to me and then unsent it, but the notification on my phone is still there. Yeah. And I know exactly what he said. And so even though I deleted it, I was like, Chris fucking knows. He saw it. There's no way around it. He saw it. I just gotta take the hit now. It was like, dude, it was 6:45 in the morning. I had just woken up, read a thing that confirmed it, and I didn't care. But in my mind, I was like, oh, I guess I'm gonna say. And then as soon as I sent it, I was like, no.
And mad is a strong word, but I don't even think I said anything. I think I just left our private Discord.
You did. Because I tried tagging you in something to be like, I hope you didn't see that, but I think you did. And it did the whole like can't find this user thing, and I was like, oh god.
So I think that's where it's for me is like leaks can get me hyped, but until I see the product, it's not real. Like I've been spoiled on a lot of movies, but until I see the movie, I don't know. Right? The meme of who Darth Vader is existed my whole life, but I'd never seen those movies. So for all I know, I've been misled.
Well, Chris, I was just potentially misleading you whenever I confirmed that. That's what happened.
Yeah, all right. So that's where I'm at. Is that little anecdote of our life is that story.
It's a super, everything is nuanced, right? So it's a really nuanced question to answer. The reality is I have looked at a few leaks in my life, but most of the time the answer is no. And it depends on what it's leaking. Like if these leaks were 100% detailed things of what's going to happen in those games, there's no way I'd look at that. Because I don't want it. That would be like completely undermining my point about being less interested in watching The Last of Us because I know the overarching story they're telling, and I had just experienced it again less than 6 months prior to the show. It doesn't mean that the show is bad, and I've never said that the show was. I gave no value judgment on it other than the fact that I didn't have a strong interest in watching something that I ultimately knew was going to happen. And so that same thing would be played here. I don't want to look at a leak that's going to ultimately tell me exactly what's going to happen in these games because I would just lose interest in playing them. Thankfully, they're still games. The gameplay may be enough to push me to continue playing it despite knowing the story. But, you know, it's still an unfortunate place to be. So,
yeah. I will say these leaks did get me interested in some things. I'll tell you that much. I saw the voice cast and I was like, this cast is awesome.
Since you looked at something, I won't confirm. There's one thing I looked at because I thought, why the fuck is this in here? But we'll talk about it after the show.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Tease.
I'm pretty sure you owe Saul a house.
What?
It was either a house or a car or something wild that you had bet, but we'll talk about it after the show. Chris,
did we get confirmation Bloodborne 2 is not coming? Is that what was in the leak?
We'll talk about it.
Okay, because I didn't see this.
We'll talk about it. So that brings us to the section of the show where first I want to announce the Velvet's Corner is back. The return is today. It will still be at the end of the episode, so stick around if that's something you're interested in. Thankfully, after our call to action, we've already received 3 responses for them. So we have 3, actually 4. We have 3 from people who are not Velvet, and Velvet himself was so touched by us bringing it up in the section that he went back in, he dug deep inside, dug into the annals of this history of this podcast, and he has one more round of quotes for us to go through. Guess who said it and about what game. So we will eventually get to that. But to honor the fact that we wanted the community who liked the segment to reach out, we are going to go with one of the ones that was submitted by One Rude Days 93. So before we get to there, we're going to get to the questions that we did not get to in this episode. And we've got a few of them. So first one, and I guess actually... yeah, I missed that one, but that's okay. We kind of talked about it a little bit anyway. I've got to, over on Twitter, we've got No Fate, who asked us a different question. This one's kind of fun. He says, if you lost access to your PSN account through no fault of your own and couldn't get it back, how much do you think it's worth? All the games, all the trophies, as well as all the time spent, etc. If you had to sue Sony, how much would you be asking for?
If I lost access to my account?
Yes, but through nothing that you did. So wrongful loss of access to your account. I want to specify. So in this world, we know that in the real world, Sony has so many legal things in their EULA that it does not matter. You are not going to get them on some kind of crazy technicality if you lost access to your account. I can almost guarantee you there's something that says if you lose access to your account, we have no legal requirement to do jack shit. But point being, in this world, let's say that you could sue Sony for this. What would be the value amount that you would give to the the lawyer, or to the judge rather?
Jeez. I don't know.
It gets hard because like it's at least as much money as you spent on games.
I think that would be where I go. Is I want my money back.
Man, now you got to go so much more hardcore. I'd be pulling out hours played. I'd look at for systems that didn't keep up with it, I'd look at trophies and then figure out how long it takes to platinum and then prorate the amount of time I likely played based off of how close to platinum I got. And I would have an hourly rate that I would charge them for that. And then on top of all that, from all the games that I bought, and I would, some of them be on sale, so I'd do like a median value for each of them. I'd go through each one of those. Then I'd bill for my hours, and then lastly, I would bill for emotional turmoil.
Yeah, I could see the emotional turmoil being the only one of the multiple things you said actually having any chance in court.
Yeah, I'd be like the emotional pain that happened from my loss of this and the loss of the hours that went into it.
Because hear me out, right? If you go to Sony and you fight for your account, right? Mm-hmm. And you sue for the value of the games, fine. But once you bring in, you platinumed Horizon Forbidden West, okay, so you finished it. So you got the value out of it, that's scratched.
I don't think so.
I do. Because you got what you paid for. You did everything in that game.
But I couldn't do everything again if I chose to do so. So I've lost the ability to replay that.
Sure. But what you're proving is you did get the value out of the game. And that's interesting. Subjective. It's interesting because a 10-year-old part of the EULA just came up again where you can't even sell your games technically, physical or otherwise. So I don't think you have an argument there. That's why I think you do not allow Sony to bring that evidence in.
Again, in this world, Sony's EULA is not stopping. You can't even sue Sony for losing access to your account. We're already having to bend the rules here. So clearly in this world where you can sue them for losing access to your account, what are you going for? I'm going all in, baby.
If I can also, go for Chris, whatever I want, I would go.
Chris, I'm going to give you, you want to anchor this a little more into the real world. Sony got sued for the fact that Killzone Shadowfall said it was 1080p, but its multiplayer was not actually 1080p. It was 1080i to make sure that the game multiplayer could run at 60 frames per second stably with everyone connected. They got sued for that and lost, Chris.
Yeah. I don't know what that has to do with this question.
They got their value. They bought the game.
That's different. That is lying in your marketing.
Okay.
That's why they lost the Linux thing.
Which is funny because they weren't lying and then they stopped marketing the Linux thing after they took it out.
Exactly.
But they're still like, you marketed off this.
Right.
But they also marketed off the fact that I buy my digital game and I don't have access to it.
They definitely don't market off the fact that you'll always have access to it. They definitely market the fact that you can have that digital game. Look, I think if we're going to go the full ridiculous route, for me, I would care about the value of my trophies probably above all things. So
that's that was a job.
Yeah.
The trophies were
The Witcher
my
3 was actual work for a lot of it. And I love that game, but that was work. If I get this GTA 5 platinum and lose my account, genuinely might kill myself. So joking. Actually, I should clarify. Joking. But that's how I would feel, how distraught I would be. So yeah, there's a level of emotional damage. But that was a terrible impression of the meme. But other than that, I would sue for the value of my games and the destruction of the digital library of things I finished.
Bare minimum would be $1 million. I'm going hard, boys.
Dude, you know what I would do?
Think about the trophies you can never get again.
And be like,
think about the MLB The Show trophies that are just, the servers are gone. You can't play anymore if you wanted to.
So what are we saying now? That I can sue? You took down the Battlefield Bad Company servers. I'm suing you for the $6.99 I spent on this game.
Yeah, more. I'm suing you for the hours I spent into that.
But what about the games I didn't spend hours in?
It doesn't matter.
Every game on my shelf back there. If the servers for each online game go down, do I get to go to Sony and be like, you owe me $100?
No, because if you'd have earned the trophies for those, you'd still have them if it wasn't for them taking access to your account away while you didn't violate any of the.
So what you're saying is I should have platinumed Babylon's Fall and sued Square Enix the day it went down.
Well, only whenever they took your account away.
Okay. So that's an interesting line.
So if Sony takes your account away, then you go, listen, guys, I would have had the Babylon's Fall. I can never earn that trophy again. That is a one-time memento that is now gone.
Yeah. It's true. I'd be more worried about my Witcher Platinum, personally.
You know, it's like whenever they come into the courtroom and they're like, that guy murdered my son. I can't make another of him.
Yeah.
I went way too far with that one.
A little bit, but that's okay. Yeah, I would definitely.
I don't know. I like to think of the Mortal Shell Platinum as my son. I don't know if I want to do that again.
Does that make me its uncle?
I kind of do.
You should.
Yeah. I don't actually. I will tell you. I do not want to earn the Bloodborne Platinum again. I would go my entire life having never have to face the defiled amygdala ever again.
Dude, the only benefit I could see of losing my account is starting over and just being a lot more deliberate with what I play. That would be the only thing I would do differently. And I don't know. That's not really worth it. I think I'd take what we got. I'll take my 20% completion rate.
I feel. So let's see. What else do we have here? I think that might. Oh, I know.
While he's searching, I don't believe that's an actual problem. By the way.
Oh, losing access to your account?
Yeah.
So one thing I thought was interesting is a few weeks back, apparently a bunch of people woke up to their account being banned.
Yeah, I saw that.
Apparently incorrectly. From what I can tell, everybody got them back.
Yeah, it sounds like they're coming back.
That's good to know. All right, Chris, I want to ask, because what we might be doing, I'm going to choose to do this in a way that seems nice to the person asking. Over on Facebook, Matt Green, one of our longtime listeners, longtime patrons, he shares a screenshot of something called Captain N, the Game Masters.
Okay.
Apparently it was a 1989 cartoon series, an animated television series that had had characters and peripherals from Nintendo IP in the show, almost like an early form of Drawn Together using only video game characters and peripherals. So there's like what I assume is supposed to be one of the princesses from one of the games. There's what maybe is like an F-Zero racer, I think. Maybe there's a dude with a whip and blonde hair that I do not know. There's a dog that looks like he's from All Dogs Go to Heaven. And then there's like this little Cupid boy who I imagine is supposed to be from, he's supposed to be Pitt from Icarus, whatever. I can't remember the name of that game right now.
Kid Icarus.
Kid Icarus, yeah. He says if you were to recast this cartoon now, what characters and peripherals would you have? I didn't know this existed. So instead of saying that this is showing your age, I'm going to say this is showing my lack of age. My lack of experience. Because this came out before I was born. By about 4 years. So, but conceptually, if you had a cartoon that was about a couple of different gaming mascots, I'm going to change the question up a little bit, Matt, just to help kind of go this. So, Chris, do you know what Drawn Together is?
Yeah, it's that
one of the best animated sitcoms ever.
Yeah,
it's fucking ridiculous. I love it to death. Take the concept behind Drawn to Death and just recast it with modern video game characters.
How many people?
5, 6.
5. Let's go with 6. Yeah. It's an even number.
Okay. This kind of sounds like when we talked about video game Jersey Shore.
I was thinking that, but so I would go with PS1 Tomb Raider.
Okay. Polygonal tits.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Claude. GTA 3.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Claude.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah.
Catalina, not part of the main crew, but a recurring character. Professor Layton.
Okay. I like that.
I think I would go a little wild with it because it's an animated show. We can do whatever we want. I think I would make a joke about it, right? And I would put a baseball player who changes each season as the cover of MLB The Show changes.
Okay, I feel.
But same personality throughout the show. Just one year it's a black dude, and next year it's a Puerto Rican guy, and then the next year it's a white dude. That's how I think I would run that. I think Kratos would probably be a good fit in there, but young Kratos.
Okay.
I think I have one more?
Yeah.
The hamburger bug snack.
Bunger?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the bunger.
A bunger?
Okay.
For the record, the stray cat lives in the house.
All right. So I'm going to choose...
Hosted by Claptrap so that people stop watching the show. It's a panel hosted by Claptrap and Agent 47.
So there's 8 people and drawn together. I just looked it up out of curiosity, but we'll stick with 6.
I can so I'm going to choose more by the time you're done.
I'm going to choose Captain Quark from Ratchet and Clank.
That's solid.
As the big lovable doofus.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm going to choose. There's a whole lot to go off of here. Oh. I'm going to choose Chloe from Uncharted. She's going to be the kind of hard-ass sex symbol.
The Sammy. You know?
Sure, yes. Let's see. Who do we want to be the... I think... I think Sly from Sly Cooper would just be really funny because he's got a great personality that can kind of mold around different people. So I think he's good. So that's my 3. It's funny that you went with GLaDOS you went with Claptrap because conversely, I was going to say either GLaDOS or Wheatley from Portal 2.
Both.
But I almost think Potato GLaDOS would be even funnier.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. What if you have both and they're just like a panel?
They're like, it's Wheatley on a rail system throughout the house holding Potato GLaDOS, and they're considered one character.
They're one
I'm
character.
Good with that. Yeah, I'm good with that. I still feel like just because it'd be funny to see, I think Link would be a funny dude to throw in there just because having a silent character, like one who just never actually talks, he just grunts and makes odd noise. Like you see his bedroom door shut and you just hear,
I was literally thinking the same thing where it's like him and PS1 Tomb Raider go off into the hot tub and it's just, yeah.
All right, so hold on. I'm at 5. I need one more. All right. I think GLaDOS Potato's technically a female, but I want a little bit more female energy in there to cause a little more chaos. So let's see. Who would be my female game choice?
Tifa.
Tifa wouldn't be bad, but I'm wanting someone a little more kooky and crazy. Fuck it. Cheerleader from Lollipop Chainsaw. Let's go.
Okay. Juliet.
And she's young, which I think works. Yes.
She's a high schooler, and this is an adult show. Is that a little...
She's one of those Japanese. She's 18, but she looks like she's still in high school, but she's of age.
Wait, what if you just change it up and it's that character from Lollipop Chainsaw, but like over after the college. Hill? So it's her at like 45, still holding this chainsaw. Her boyfriend's head is just increasingly fucking...
It's just maggot filled.
Deceased, exactly. Completely.
How does a reanimated head die?
You would have to think it would decompose all the way after a while, right?
I don't know. We're going to ask Mimir. How about that?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, that was a fun little thing. So now is the time. Or Chris, do you want to add 2 for yours? I didn't, but I think 6 is good.
No, we'll go with 6. I could figure some out, but...
Yeah, 6 is good.
Oh, Matt Hazard. Holy shit.
Not bad.
Matt Hazard and Duke. That's it.
The two worst possible guys to add in, but it's so funny that you would. Actually, same two people in my group, because it would be so funny to have 3 massively buff dudes, but one of them is fucking Matt Hazard, one of them is Duke Nukem, and then one of them is fucking Captain Quark.
Yeah. You know what? I think I would amend mine a little bit, and I would take out the baseball player because I don't really love the joke, and I would put Alan Wake in there. So it would be Duke Nukem, Matt Hazard, and Alan Wake. The most fourth wall breaking cast of all time.
Yeah, that'd be pretty wild.
Alan Wake is writing the show in the show.
Yeah. What would the name be if we're going to try and take the drawn together inspiration, right? Because they're animated. So these are video game characters. They wouldn't be drawn together. What would we call
Coded together.
Dude, speaking of coded, do you ever watch the show Code Monkeys?
Together.
That's pretty good. Do you ever watch Code Monkeys?
No,
on
I've
G4?
never seen that.
It's a pretty good show. You should definitely check it out. It's video game developers, and it's like in a 2D sprite animation style.
Is it just American IT crowd?
Ish. Visually, it kind of looks like, like pixel sprite character, but you know that game that we talked about where I can't think of the name of it right now, but where it's like a simulator game dev maker or whatever. Is that what it's called?
Game Dev Story?
Yeah, Game Dev Story. It's like that, but it's a TV show.
Nice. That's pretty funny.
And you see the people coming in and talking about their stuff. You should check it out. All right. So we are going to move into the Velvet's Corner, and that means for the first time in a while, I get to edge Chris with a little bit of...
Wait, you didn't fucking finish it yet?
Velvet's Corner. All right.
It's been so long. Just finish.
Chris, you can't fix what's not broken.
That's your theme song has the same problem as Dune Part 1. It doesn't fucking end.
Oh, it ends.
It
just
stops.
Doesn't
it doesn't end. It stops. That's the problem. It just stops.
Oh. So, Chris, Rude Days 93 came in with a Velvet's Corner here, and he says, so the 3 games I have picked have all released on PS5 this year, and as you go down the list, you will definitely get it right. So, anyone who doesn't remember, this is another round of the bad reviews for great games. So, these are well-regarded games, and these are bad reviews, and we have to figure out from the reviews if we can guess what game they're talking about.
The second best Velvet's Corner game, by the way.
Yeah.
Shout out.
He said the scoring here is some grade A old-fashioned Kentucky scoring. First set is if you get all 3 games right and how many hints you needed in order to do so. A good old Southern accent should be used here. So, Chris, if we get it in 1 to 5 hints across all 3 games, damn, you're smart.
All right, boy.
6 through 9, well, you ain't the smartest, but you all right. 10 through 12, you're a little on the special side, aren't you? And then 13 through 15 is, boy, you as dumb as a box of rocks.
Okay.
All right, so the second set here for the score is if you miss a game or all games. So if we miss 1 game, well, you tried. If you miss 2 games, you brought shame to your family. And missed 3 games, get out.
I have a plan, Arthur.
So, you brought shame to me, Arthur. I tried, Dutch. So it would seem that we're foregoing a punishment here, unless you want to consider the punishment being that if we do poorly, we have to accept that we might be as dumb as a box of rocks.
How about the punishment can be if I lose, we have to talk about the leaks.
All right, Chris. Here we are.
Yeah.
So,
is this a team game or are we fighting?
This is a team game.
Okay.
Let's go. All right. So here we are. Or actually, I mean, it doesn't really matter. We can do it as a team game, or we can just figure out which one of us is closer. You know what, Chris? He didn't specify. I'll defer to you. Do you want this to be a team game?
Let's do a team game.
Okay. And then in the future, if you guys want it to be us pitted against each other, make sure that you say so in the prompt that you send over. So, game one, first hint is same old reskinned everything, a nothing story, build, crafting, destroyed, insufferable characters, bugs galore, content redesigned to devour more of your time. Don't waste your money. All right, so just to remind you,
building part that gets me.
3 games that have all released on PS5 this year. I'm with you. The build, crafting, destroyed, insufferable characters, bugs galore.
What came out?
So what is a buggy game
elements?
that is craft oriented this year that hit PS5?
I can't think of any.
All right, let's think through. When did Rust hit PlayStation? I think it was last year, right?
Rust doesn't have characters.
You're right, and it doesn't really have a story.
Exactly. The Last of Us PC.
Well, that's what I'm trying to think. So Sons of the Forest didn't come out this year, so it can't be that one. I'm trying to think of what would have crafting. Same old reskinned everything. So reskinned makes me think that it's something that comes out often, and it's once again coming out again that way.
Until he said building, I thought this was Call of Duty.
Yeah, same old reskinned everything and nothing story. Build, crafting, destroyed. Oh, I think this might be. I think it's saying build crafting. Like you don't have the ability to reasonably craft a build.
Diablo
a good
4?
Build.
Is this Diablo 4?
This might be it. It's either Diablo 4 or it's a Call of Duty game. But I think you might be right. Build, crafting, destroy makes me think it's going to be something a little more RPG heavy.
I thought you were talking about build,
me too.
crafting,
Me too.
Destroy,
Well, yeah. It's an build, crafting, destroyed. It's a weird wording, but I understand it.
Definitely
Chris, here's
Diablo,
a question.
then.
Are you willing to run the risk of selecting the answer and revealing it now for a chance to get less hints? Or do you want to go ahead and go to 2 to try and seal it beforehand?
I don't know that another hint helps because I don't know any other game that would have the word build crafting in it. Unless, I think this came out this year. Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance.
Oh, you talking about the remaster re-release of Dark Alliance?
Oh, okay. What do you remember? The Dungeons and Dragons game launched into Game Pass early this year. Got like 6s. I'm actually very interested in playing it. Dungeons and Dragons game.
2023 game?
Yeah. I don't know if it's 2023 PS5. Dungeons and Dragons, it's Dark Alliance, yeah.
Is it a new Dark Alliance?
Yes.
Oh, you're correct. I forgot all about that. It is a new Dark Alliance.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know if that's it, but
I don't think that's it. Because this is good reviews for bad reviews for good games. So this is a game that's ultimately considered. Here's the only thing I haven't thought of. Do you think we would count in expansions to existing games? Because build crafting, the reason this even crossed my mind is because you talked about going back, and Sean spent so much time, even when we were playing Baldur's Gate 3, talking about how they had completely changed the way that you build characters and build classes in Destiny when Lightfall came out. And I don't. Maybe Warframe is another example of that type of game where there's been an expansion this year that might be considered that. So I could look at that. Destiny always gets complaints for reskinned everything, though most MMOs do. It's a common MMO complaint. It's like, well, you're just reusing more of the game, which is kind of what happens.
I remember
Lightfall Story being criticized.
I lean towards Diablo, but I'm willing to hear the second hint.
I would be really surprised to hear Diablo be bugs galore because I don't remember there being a lot of bugs. I didn't play Lightfall at all, so I don't know if there's bugs.
You remember all the server issues at launch?
Yeah. Would you think somebody who's doing this might consider that to be a bug?
I think somebody who's giving a bad review score to a good game might.
Content redesigned to devour more of your time. I think the problem with this is it sounds like something that's either annual or it's often. And Diablo 4 was forever away from Diablo 3. And Diablo 3 was so long from Diablo 2 that I think saying reskinned would be really hard to get out of that game. But I still follow your reasoning. And this is just because it's a review for that game doesn't mean it has to be sensible. It can still be for Diablo. I don't actually know.
If you go to the second one, I feel like we're at a point where it's either Destiny or Diablo.
All right, let's find out. Okay, boring, revamped systems that aren't any good. Nerfs at every angle. Okay, so this
Destiny.
Unlikely to be, yeah. Difficulty increase that hinders new players. So definitely something that has new players coming in. Kind of what, oh my God, I didn't spend $100 for the annual pass. So it's something that's a live service game.
No, that's Destiny. We're done. It's Destiny. It's like
is the annual pass $100 for Destiny? Yeah. Holy shit, dude. All right, let's find out. Yeah, Destiny 2 Lightfall. Yeah, okay.
That was a curveball because I didn't expect a DLC. I think this is one of those situations where it's like when you're doing a riddle and you get the answer wrong, but you kind of get the answer right, you know?
All right, you ready for game 2?
Hit me.
First hint. Read the reviews about people saying play past the first few hours and it's a really fun game.
This is Baldur's Gate 3. I guarantee it's Baldur's Gate 3. I don't even want you to read anything else.
Well, if we go ahead and click the answer, we lose all points.
I didn't know that. But
that's how it works.
For content, I almost want to bet the farm, but keep reading. That's fine.
Read the reviews about people saying play past the first few hours. So what's another game that came out this year?
Know that I said Baldur's Gate 3 within the first sentence. Just FYI.
Well, I can see it
all
being
that they said.
Yeah, that's the entire 1-star review.
We read it one more time.
Read the reviews about people saying play past the first few hours and it's a really fun game. So whatever it is a game that's considered not to be very fun up front.
Okay. Starfield, kind of
like Days
Skyrim,
Gone.
One of the two. Starfield or Baldur's Gate. It's one of these because Baldur's Gate is one of my favorite games of all time. Game of the year, quality game. Its tutorial is pretty brutal, especially when, like me, you've done it 8 times. So,
all right, Chris, I'm gonna really ask you because I understand both of your choices, but I don't fully agree with them yet. Can we go to 2?
Go to 2.
Let's find out. Okay. But the problem is, after the first few hours, the game is over. It's a really tiny game and has nothing going for it. Okay, this might be Starfield because I heard Starfield's story is really. But then again, tiny game. If anything, Starfield's too big,
but
with nothing
hours
to push you to go into it.
I don't. Just to clarify,
these reviews almost fight each other, right?
I don't want to get yelled at. Just to clarify, when I say this, I don't agree with this review. Spider-Man 2? No, because the first hour is probably the best part of that game.
Okay.
So
play past the first few hours and it's a really fun game. And then the second one says you after the first few hours, the game's over. These seem to fight each other.
They do. Yakuza Like a Dragon? No. What was the one? Ishin? The Yakuza Ishin? I heard it was short.
Maybe. That would actually be pretty interesting. I have unfortunate context that you don't. I can see the size of the blacked out spoiler box, and it doesn't look long enough to be Yakuza.
Fair enough.
That's a pretty long game name, is all I'm getting at.
Neither one
I could see, look, here's a weird thing. I've seen people say that the story for Starfield is incredibly short. But I could also see, hey, play past the first few hours. Whenever it opens up, Starfield becomes really fun.
I mean,
But I didn't play Starfield, so I don't
part
know.
of the review cycle was rush to New Game Plus. So like,
holy shit, really?
Yeah, I could see it being Starfield.
You want to go to 3? Just to, at 3, I want to guess. I'm willing to be that risky. The game design, mechanics, dialogue, content, plot, voice acting, everything, and I mean absolutely everything is terrible with this game.
Starfield.
That's a scathing review. I think this is Starfield as well.
It's Starfield for sure.
All right, let's go.
And I like Starfield.
Holy shit! No, how did I not think about this?
Baldur's Gate.
This is actually yes. This is reading it. I disagree with this, but reading it, do you know what it is, Chris? You can guess it. I bet.
Alan Wake 2?
One of the first games come out this year.
Hogwarts Legacy?
Forspoken.
Oh, I agree with everything they said.
All right, Rude Days, you've thrown us a loop. This is not a generally well-regarded game.
Let's play bad reviews for video games. It's for someone.
All right, that one's interesting, but Chris, we lost all points on that one. All right, for the sake, I want to see what
Flag
Force
on
says.
the play.
Force says the only positive thing I have to say about this game is that literally any game I'm playing after this will seem a masterpiece by default. There were 6 clues to this. Now I learned the company behind this game is shut down after making just one single game. I would have gotten it there.
Yeah.
And the last one is, in an ideal world, the makers and marketers of such products would be in prison for fraud.
That's funny. That's some funny shit.
Holy crap, dude. All right. Oh my God. Okay, game 3. We have to redeem ourselves because, Chris, I already got to tell you. Well, you tried.
Oh, golly.
All right. Game 3 has got the first review is the longest of any of them here.
Hell yes.
In this
dramatic, I need a dramatic reading of it, by the way.
All right, here you are. The developers are just awful at fixing this game. The bugs that they fix end up breaking the game when they upload new patches to be downloaded. I've had to uninstall the game and reinstall it twice now due to them not knowing how to create updates for their game. Every time a new patch is released, the game doesn't start up or it says I missed a texture update and there is no way to find that missing file. Very unsatisfying, specifically or especially when the game is enjoyable to play, but the constant updates every day ruin it for people. Go back to the drawing board with coding, please. Also, Chris, how the fuck did we say Starfield when these are games released for PS5? I feel like...
It's the Xbox tax, bro.
This is what happened, Rude Days. You got me because you play Xbox a lot. So in my mind, I'm like, Xbox is in play here.
I didn't even consider that it was just an Xbox game. Like, that sounds like Starfield.
Rough. Okay, Chris, I'm going to be dead honest with you. I do not know a game that came out this year and constantly had apparently issues with being patched to even work.
See, the texture updates makes me think Call of Duty but that's a PC thing, not really a.
No, there's texture packs on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X.
Then I would I would be leaning towards Call of Duty because I know Modern Warfare 2 on my computer, I was always downloading texture updates.
Well, and you know what's funny is my buddy, he recently got a Series X like 2-3 days ago.
Yeah. 350.
But before that, he was on an Xbox One. And he asked me when we were hanging out one day to go look, and I had to help him figure out how to even get Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 to install. And apparently it's a super common problem on Xbox and Windows if you buy it through Microsoft Store.
Really?
So I could see that because him having beta information was like fucking with something else. So we had to do a bunch of shit to get around it. But we finally got there and he got it downloaded. So I could see that. I remember Baldur's Gate had some issues that they had to attempt.
And here's the thing. I know we just got thrown a loop with fucking Forspoken, but this is bad reviews of good games, and I don't think Call of Duty qualifies there. But again, Forspoken was here, so.
Let's go to number 2.
Go to number 2.
All right. combat system is absolutely horrible. Nothing makes sense. No idea where to go, what to do, where to start. Played 10 plus hours already, and has seemed to mostly aimlessly wander around trying to figure anything out.
Baldur's Gate.
Story doesn't seem to be overly engaging. This sounds like Baldur's Gate.
It's Baldur's Gate.
All right, you ready, Chris?
Well, I might as well be.
Baldur's Gate 3, let's go. Whew.
We got there in the end.
All right, Chris. So it's a mix of things, right? We missed a game.
Yeah.
So it's, well, you tried.
Well, you tried.
But if we were to go back and look at how many hints it did take for the ones we got right, we did 2 for the first game and 2 for the second game and 6. So we're at 10, which puts us in 10 through 12, which is, you're a little on the special side, ain't you?
Yeah.
So that's our mixed answer there.
Can I ask you a philosophical question that has hit me now? Kind of fucked with my worldview.
Is it Descartes' I think, therefore I am, and how can you actually ever confirm your own existence instead of just not doubting your existence?
In a way.
Okay, go ahead.
I adore Baldur's Gate, right?
Schrodinger's cat. Go ahead, yeah.
But what does it say about Baldur's Gate that this guy threw a bunch of negatives at me, and I was like, "That's fucking Baldur's Gate. That shit sounds like Baldur's Gate."
You know why? I know exactly what this is. This is rooting right back to what we've said about that game and why it's such a massive game this year. There are, of course, still people that it doesn't speak to. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, as we were saying, it was kind of crazy that a CRPG was drawing in so many people, because typically this is the response you get for CRPGs.
It's a very
definitely on console. Everything about this, it's because for people that don't understand Dungeons and Dragons as a concept, which is that everything works based off of your imagination. Like you have to be interesting for the game to be interesting to some degree. That is how it works. Or you have to be able to think of interesting things in order for you to have interesting things happen. Therefore, your fun is somewhat tied to your own ability to think out of the box, which is technically also true of games like Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
So, but played 10 plus hours, bad combat system, no idea where to go, what to do. All of that screams a CRPG that and I'm not even going to say chooses not to hold your hand, because realistically, Baldur's Gate 3 gives you so much fucking UI information.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not the most intuitive thing to figure out if you're not already familiar with how those type of games tend to give you that UI information.
Exactly.
Yeah, that one's an interesting one. He said also, just as a note, all of these reviews are random 1-star Google reviews. So, all right, Rude Days, thank you. Appreciate it, sir. Apparently, we tried.
Well, we did surely try. Sometimes try.
I'm disappointed in us, Chris, but that's okay. I think at this point we can take our what do they call those little hand whips, like the dude in the Da Vinci Code who kept whipping himself in the back?
A whip.
Yeah, I think they have a smaller name, but I can't say.
Name? It's a 5-letter word, homie.
Whip is 4 letters.
That's even better. It's a 4-letter word.
What is it? Self-flagellation, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the act. That's not what the thing is called.
Yeah, I know, but I'm looking. Flogging. Is it called a flog then?
It's called a whip, dog.
With a whip or a stick. Yeah, there you go.
What the fuck are you talking about? A smaller whip?
Yeah. A mini whip.
Oh, a work in progress?
Actually, that's pretty good. It's not a full whip. It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah. It's not a whip. It's a whip.
Cool whip.
All right, Chris. As always, we got to shout out these lovely patrons. So if this is your first time listening to the show, hopefully you enjoyed it. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to hop into the Discord, which is always linked in the description below, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on podcast services, we would love to have you over there. that'd be fantastic. You can join in there, talk to Chris and I and some of our other patrons and members, listeners, all those great people who also join in there. There's a spot for you to talk about things we talk about in the podcast, generally talk with everybody, talk about movies, talk about TV. We just love to have you there if that sounds like your kind of thing. If you want to catch up with us on the social media site formerly known as Twitter, you can head over to there and do @TriangleSQRD. Lastly, if you want to, you can do like Matt Green did and find us on Facebook in the group Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast, where you can respond to the Velvet's Corner prompt, call to action if you want to throw one in there, or to any of the question call to actions that we throw out there and get your questions potentially read on the show. If you'd like to join the people who choose to not only give us their time every week, which we are always so thankful for, you can join our patrons who go to patreon.com/Nartech and give as little as $1 per month to keep the show going without us having to dig into our own pockets, which is so awesome. And we are very thankful for those people. So without further ado, we always shout them out at the end of the episode. So Chris, thanks for joining me. And we'd like to shout out Spencer, Brandon Edwards, Alex, Barry Rogers, Stingray X, Easton328, Aztec King, Lecheon69, The Lord Corgi, Bailey Robertson, Mark Schutz, Cypher Primus, Kyle Grimm, Rude Days 93, Kevin Bacon Bits, Danny Villalobos, Jehudi MD, No Fate, Josh Ayers, Derek Porter, Donovan Williams, Matthew Green, and Sean Sanderud. Thanks to each and every one of you. We'll see you next week.